Hello YouTube guys, and welcome back to the third installment of the Civ to Age tier list. Today, of course, we are going to be doing Castle Age, and in general, I'm just going to be mostly rambling, but hopefully you guys get some insights into my thought process and how strong each Civ is in these ages, and obviously, hopefully you guys enjoy the videos. Alright, so the first Civ we're going to be starting with is China. A lot to think about China with Castle Age because obviously China has been a bit weaker on the feudal and the Dark Age tier lists, but China is a boom civ, and boom civs are obviously generally better as the game goes on. I'm just debating whether China should be an S or an A, but I think A, considering some other civs on this list. The only reason I'm not putting them at an S is because they're a bit slow compared to some other civs, and they don't have as nice food transition, because obviously their farms are full cost, which makes them slow, of course, right? The main reason why they are A, of course, though, is because they have a good eco with the IOs as well as granaries, and they have quite good units, that being the Nesta Bees, the Clockwork Nesta Bees, as well as the Palace Guards. So good eco plus very strong military makes them an A. Being a bit slow, just when you hit Castle Age and not having that very good farm transition with the cheaper discounted farms, makes them not prime S tier. And reading into that, I'm going to be ranking Abbasid, and I'm actually going to put them in S tier. Maybe you guys are a bit surprised that Abbasid would be above China, but this is because I think these two civs are relatively similar, right? Both are boom civs, both are a bit slow, both are very, very good into the mid to late, but as you notice with the others tiers, Abbasid was D tier, I think, in both of them. And Abbasid, I think, really shines in Castle Age, and the core difference, I think, between Abbasid and China is that Abbasid has that easier farm transition, being with the cheaper upgrades as well. So the cheaper upgrades, possibly with Culture Wing, and as well as the possible cheaper farms with Fertile Crescent. So they have those two options, as well as they have the possibility for a better military with Military Wing, of course. So they just have more options, I think, and they actually scale a bit better just in the immediate Castle Age as well as with that farm transition. So I think that's why I'm going to place Abbasid a bit higher, and might see the swap to get an Imperial, but for now, I think Abbasid Castle Age is where this civ really strives. They can also have very good timings with composite bows, as well as building siege on the field, so I think this is a safe pick for Abbasid, and they kind of need an insane Castle Age because obviously they were, I think, D tier on both Feudal and Dark Age. Alright, so moving on to English. A few of you guys noted in my last tier list that English being B tier on Feudal Age was a bit surprising to you guys, but you have to understand that at the top level, eco is quite important, and English, until Imperial Age, really has a middle of the pack eco. Actually, not even middle of the pack. It's a bit lower on the eco side compared to all these other civs, which just makes them in the Feudal and the Castle Age a bit slower. And that's why I'm going to continue to rank English in the B tier. They're just a solid civ, a bit slow, but in my opinion, no matter what the map, no matter what, almost universally, English for me is just B tier. And that doesn't change too much, unless it's like a very hybrid. I almost want to say straight line push because I'm thinking of Canal, but it will long momentum strive very well. Anyway, we're getting a bit off topic here, but English B tier doesn't have the best eco. I can't really put them in an S tier or an A tier because of that. Same with French. This civ was obviously A tier in Feudal, but we're gonna have to bring it down to B tier in Castle Age just because knights get a bit weaker. The faster villager production gets a bit. It's it's worth a bit less. Like having faster villages when you're already scaling very high with villages at this point. You probably have 80 to 100. It's not as meaningful compared to like 15% IO drop off. So French good in feudal, but once you get to the castle age, it scales. Its strong points are just not as valuable. The knights, the villagers to name it again. Yeah, just pretty much for those reasons, French is B. H3 is a tough one. I'm really debating between A and B here. I think I've got to put them in A though, just because I think they are better than English and French. They struggle a bit in feudal getting to this point, but if you can get to this point and get a decent bit of rocks, it's really obviously dependent on how many rocks you get, but if you can get those H3, I think they're a good caster H civ, and you scale well into the late game with a decent bit of rocks. Obviously, again, it's really dependent on how many rocks you have, because that is H3's main focus. That is what you're playing for, is H3. You're not playing H3 to go Burgrave and scale to the late game. I mean, it's possible you can do that as well, which actually makes them probably a bit better in Castle Age. You don't want to, sorry, you don't want to scale to the late game as with Burgrave, but you can play Burgrave if you want to in the immediate Castle Age. Don't want to get my words mixed here, but Burgrave is for more of a cheesy build. Ragnus is more for a scale Castle Age and Imperial Age build. So I think H3 is a safe A here, maybe on the low side, just because it really is dependent on if you can get the relics or not. And Mongols. Mongols is an interesting one because I think they're very similar to H3 in that it highly depends on what the state of the game is. Obviously, all these civs are, but I think these two in general is full caster age. It depends on so many other factors that it's hard to rank these extremely high. Whereas Abbasid in China, for the most part, are always gonna, unless the game is just over, you're always gonna be hitting your stride in caster age or Rampage. And I'll explain why Mongols, of course, is not always in a good position in caster age. Because again, it really depends on trade, and that's feudal age. If you don't have trade, I might even rank Mongols a B tier, to be honest. Kotai is good, but it's not a huge eco boost, and if you go separate out, then you don't have an amazing army. So, or even defensive, because you're not gonna have keeps, and that's a big deal in Castle Age, having that map control and stuff. Starting to section off the map with the big gold mines. So Mongols good in Castle Age, but dependent on do you have a lot of trade. Pretty much it. Do you have a lot of trade? Um, do you have a big army to support going Kotai and doing a big timing push? And that's where Mongols is. You're really going to see Mongols win games. It's with the Kotai and trade. Alright, so moving on to Rus. I think Rus is a solid A tier civ in Castle Age. Again, looking at Rus, you have nothing super special about Castle Age. They get pretty much the same buffs as they do in Feudal Age, but that doesn't make them weak, right? They're a very solid civ all around. It's hard to rank Rus at any age, I think, rather than an A tier, because maybe Dark Age, right? Like I did, but the most important age is Feudal, Castle Age, Imp Age. Hard to rank them lower than A tier because they're just so solid. And in Castle Age, you don't get much. You get the high trade house. You could probably scale your cabins a bit more. Especially if you reach that 500 bounty, you start to see a lot of passive gold income with Rus. That's pretty much the most important point about Rus and Castle Age, but again, has so much other solid stuff, can't rank them lower than that. Alright, moving on to Delhi. I think Delhi is probably the first civ I'm going to put in C tier. It just comes down to the simple fact that Delhi does not have the same timing tax in Castle Age immediately when you hit Castle as other civs do, because they get text so much slower. So Yeah, I mean, if you have 50 archers, right, and you need to upgrade them to attack, and it takes you 3 minutes, whereas to another civ it takes you 1 minute. That is a big disadvantage. Just obvious, right? And for that simple reason, I can't rank Delhi any higher in Castle Age. You will see Delhi go to Castle Age, but that's only because Delhi is so they're a bit ahead likely in Feudal Age because of that Sacred Site income that they're getting for free. That they might as well go Castle Age with that gold income. And often Delhi isn't really even going to go Castle Age. They kind of all in Feudal because, like I mentioned before, you don't have that time to get those upgrades to attack. You kind of need to attack immediately. Okay, so Maui. Maui is an interesting one because obviously they're an aggressive civ. I think I put them in A tier on Feudal, and I'm gonna have to continue that with Malians. The issue with Malians, and if you play a lot of Malians, you'll notice this, but Malians are very, very strong immediately after Castle Age with the Cattle Ranch, and obviously it's a huge boost. And if you think about it, Malians actually has one of the best immediate incomes following Castle Age, like just as you hit Castle Age, because I think cattle give 28 food. Maybe it's nerfed, I forget. I think they did nerf it to maybe 25. Anyway, cattle give 25 per, and the cattle ranch gives 20. So you're essentially doubling your income with that landmark, which is like 400 food per minute, which is an immediate boost. It's food, which is one of the most valuable resources in the mid to early game. And that makes Maui a juggernaut immediately after Castle, but as the game starts to go on, that's really all you have, right? So you could even argue Malians mid to late Castle Age is probably a C tier, but just because they have such a strong early game Castle Age timing attacks, I can't really, in my opinion, put them any lower than an A tier. Because obviously in this game, timing attacks are such a valuable part of this game. It really does make Maui a good civ. Okay, so Ottomans, moving on to Ottomans. I think we keep Ottomans in the A tier. Or I might have actually had them in S tier on Feudal, I can't recall. But Ottomans is going to be an A tier civ in the Castle Age, and you guys might be asking yourselves, why is Ottomans A tier? Are they not S tier in Castle Age? And it's close between A tier and S tier, like a lot of these civs are. But Ottomans, I think the one thing that Ottomans is stopping them from being an S tier is the fact that they don't have that nice farm transition as Abbasid, as Rus, as China kind of does. These civs benefit a lot from building farms because they get increased food gather rate or even cheaper access to farms like Abbasid does. Ottomans, not so much. They actually have, outside of the normal food tax, no food bonuses, and their farms are not cheaper. Which means that farm transition for Ottomans is extremely expensive and not really something you want to do. Other than that, they are A tier because of the Mehmed Armory, one of the best landmarks in the Castle Age landmarks in the game. Obviously, the schools are insane. They do allow you to delay that farm transition just a bit because obviously you're saving food on those units. And Janissaries are very good units, which makes building Cav against Ottomans just kind of bad. So for those reasons, I can't put them lower in an A tier, but for the previous reason, I can't put them in the S tier like Abbasid. So that is Ottomans. Alright, so Aoe4 is for me a really has been a difficult civ to rank. And people I noticed in my last video there was a comment about Aoe4 being so. Issue with Aobids is that Aobids, I think, in general, isn't strong in particular in any one age. But the fact is that their wings are what makes Abbasid Abbasid, right? Like Abbasid currently is strong in Castle Age because of the advancement wing. And I'm gonna put them in S tier just because that is what everyone is doing with Albid, and it doesn't really make sense to put Albids in a different category. Like I'm just gonna rank Albids based on what people are doing with Albids, right? like maybe in theory in Castle Age, if you took out all the timings, if you took out all the other stuff, like just fixed every civ in Castle Age at the same time, Albids would not be S tier. But the fact is, Albids gets to Castle Age a minute to 2 minutes before every other civ, so they're gonna be S for me. And Albids always wants to play towards that in the current meta, so they just save a lot of res and they have insane timings in Castle Age, so they have to be Castle Age for me for this to make sense. Alright, so Byzantines. I'm gonna have a lot of civs in A tier here, guys. Sorry about that, but this is just my opinion on the current meta and stuff like that, and the current strengths of each civ, so I'm gonna have to drop Byzantines in A tier for Castle Age. Yeah. I think Byzantines is a decent Castle Age civ. They start to really scale their eco at this point with the cisterns, with the Aoe4. Farms are obviously a very good transition for Byzantines given they're cheaper and they also reduce Aoe4. So, I mean, because of those reasons, cisterns, Aoe4, I mean, just those, I think. Also, Mangonel Towers, they're very good defensively. Places Byzantines in A tier. You could maybe justify them being S tier, but I don't think in the current meta that is possible. Like, I think Abbasid, not Albids, Abbasid, have a few more things going for them than Byzantines does, just to compare the two. They have a few more options, and they're a little bit faster in Feudal Age, so getting to this nice Castle Age timing is a little bit more difficult for Byzantines. Who knows? Maybe this would change in the future. I think I'm quite sure Byzantines are going to be getting some changes soon. Nothing too drastic, but some nice ones. All right, so Japan. Japan is an extremely difficult one for me to rank because Japan, in theory, if you think about it, guys, Japan in theory doesn't actually get that many benefits from going Castle Age. You get the Castle Age Ramok, the Yoshiro. You get the Knights. You get the Onamushu. That's about it, to be honest. You get obviously some upgrades, but what can you actually do in Feudal Age as Japan? You can get every single food tech in the game, the farm techs. You can get 2 melee upgrades. You can get Samurai, you can get Ono Bugishu. Very, very strong units that, I mean, all these reasons means you don't really get that much from going Castle Age, other than if you want to play Mounted Samurai, if you want to play Yoshiro, which are obviously both good options as well. It's just, does that itself make them A tier? It might. It might make them A tier. Because the Yoshiro Ramok at the moment is kind of insane. It's insane tempo. You're actually getting a lot of value compared to like any other Ramok in the game. Like think about it compared to if you're up against Atri and you fast castle, you're getting a monk instantly, you're getting better production instantly. Atri just kind of doesn't have that. You can outproduce and you can It's gonna be more efficient than H3 by getting those rocks and killing H3's prowess at the same time by having faster production. So I'm gonna put Japan in the A tier here, purely based on that landmark. Nothing, almost nothing else, because again, they get knights, but so does every other civ in the game. Yeah, I mean, literally purely based on the Yoshio landmark, the Folding Gate. Right, so Jeanne d'Arc. I think, I think, guys, this is going to be another A tier civ. Now, this is, I hope not too boring for you guys, but I can't rank a lot of these civs lower than they are. And this might seem like I don't know, being too generous to a lot of these civs, but you have to understand if a civ is bad in Castle Age, it makes them kind of bad in the current state of the game. Because Castle Age, again, is such an important part of the game that you can't really be bad in Castle Age and be a strong civ. Unless you're Delhi, because then you all in Feudal every single game. Okay? So, yeah. Jeanne d'Arc is an ATO civ, and for me, Jeanne d'Arc is kind of just a better French. Um, I think you scale better into Castle Age because of just purely Jeanne. She is very valuable, especially early feudal, late feudal, early castle. That's pretty much it. There's not much else to talk about with Jeanne. Pretty simple. So, alright, so moving on to Order of the Dragon. I think finally this is the first civ I can put in detail in Castle Age. Now, all the Order of the Dragon chads, I'm sorry guys, but for me, Order of the Dragon is one of the worst civs in the game, and Castle Age is probably the reason why, actually. Their Castle Age kind of sucks. It kind of sucks, and it's mostly, I think, because their eco does not scale well into the mid to late game. WTC is not extremely popular for Order of the Dragon because it's not, again, it's not good. Their eco is not good. Ragnitz, maybe it's popular, but it's a worse version of H3's Ragnitz because obviously you do not have prelates in H2. So you cannot have prelates stationed at relics to pick them up and bring them back to your base. It's just the reality is it's just worse than H3 in that regard. And whereas H3 you can play 2TC, you can do other options. That's kind of all the Dragon's only move. 1TC, Ragnitz, at least that I found. So for me, all the Dragon, detail civ. And finally, but not surprising, Sushi. For me, the best civ in the game in Castle Age, and I think it was the best civ in the game in Feudal Age as well. Hopefully we get some changes soon, but Sushi has too much going for it to not be the best civ in Castle Age, I think. And I'll explain to you why. And it's a lot of the same reasons why China is good, but also why Abbasid is good. So first of all, it has IOs, has palace codes, doesn't have that nested B stuff, but it makes sorry the you don't know what time the Clockwork nested Bs, the Battle Siege and stuff that China does, but it makes up for it with two very big things, and these things are the Monk Ranmark and the better farm transition, so like Abbasid does. And these things are huge because it gives you so much nice tempo going into the early Castle Age, as well as even the late game if you get those relics. For instance, let's say you're going up against China, another boom civ. You can probably get 4 rogs, maybe even 5 rogs against China because first of all, you're faster into feudal and into castle age, going even 3 TC against 2 TC. But also, when you do get castle age, you can go the monk landmark, and you're immediately producing monks plus units, right? That can not only fight any other units that China would make, but also can take the rogues on the map and just bring them back to your base and just you just take all the rogues on the map. It's an obvious, insane landmark for early game Castle Age tempo against another boom civ. So that landmark is very, very good in that regard. And then for the rate to maybe mid Castle Age, you can also have a better farm transition, just like Abbasid would, but I think it's actually even cheaper than Abbasid would. Because 40% I think is song, so yeah, 40% off granaries, 40% off farms, and it's too easy for Sushi to mass an army, have a good farm transition, get the rogues. Whereas other civs, they kind of just can't do all of that at the same time. So yeah, a bit of a rant into why Sushi is so good, but yeah, for me that's my tier list for Castle Age, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoying this video and getting a little bit of insight into my thoughts about each civ and the strengths at each age. And yeah. I will obviously be back with the Imperial Age tier list, hopefully in the next week. Thank you guys for watching, and take care.